because for one, I beat my case. When you beat something, you beat it.
R.Kelly sounded pretty confident when he talked about beating the allegations against him. So, he must have been surprised when a jury found him guilty, and he got a 30-year sentence. Now, new evidence has revealed a different side of the story, and no one is happy about it. The case that never felt closed. On February 8, 2002, the Chicago Sun-Times received an anonymous package in the mail. Inside was a videotape. The Chicago Sun-Times reported on the tape on February 8, 2002. And what was allegedly on it was R.Kelly, one of the biggest names in R&B, engaging in sexual acts with a girl who appeared to be underage, including an act of urination. Kelly denied it was him. On June 5, 2002, he was indicted on 21 counts of child pornography. He was arrested in Miami and posted $750,000 bail. The trial that followed became one of the most watched celebrity legal proceedings of the 2000s. But when it finally concluded in 2008, the verdict stunned many people who had followed the case. Kelly was acquitted on all 14 remaining counts on June 13, 2008. The key reason the prosecution's case collapsed was one that many people still talk about today. The alleged victim, the girl in the tape, did not testify that she was the person in the video. In court, she was referred to only as Jane Doe. Without her confirmation, the jury could not determine beyond a reasonable doubt that the girl in the footage was a minor. Kelly walked free, and for years afterward, the case sat in that uncomfortable space, unresolved, contested, and quietly devastating for the person at the center of it. That person was Rona Lanfair. She was 14 years old when the tape was made. She grew up in Chicago, came from a family connected to the music world, and had aspirations of her own as a performer. One of her relatives was Sparkle, an R&B singer with professional ties to Kelly during the 1990s. Through those connections, Lanfair entered Kelly's orbit as a young teenager. At the time, Kelly was untouchable. He had sold over 75 million records worldwide, earned multiple Grammy Awards, and produced chart-topping hits like I Believe I Can Fly, Ignition, Remix, and Bump and Grind. For a young girl with musical ambitions in Chicago, being in the same room as R.Kelly was a moment that felt like a door opening. It turned out to be something very different.
So what made you decide to write your book?
It took a lot of thought.
That voice belongs to Rona Lanfair, the woman the world knew only as Jane Doe for more than 2 decades.
My son was the biggest reason I decided to write the book. Nobody is more qualified to speak on my experience more than I am.
Her decision to finally tell her story publicly and in her own words is what makes this moment different from everything that came before it. For years, the R.Kelly story was told by prosecutors, defense attorneys, journalists, and documentary filmmakers. Now, for the first time, the person who is at the center of the most consequential piece of evidence in the original case is the one talking. And what she's saying pulls back the curtain, not just on what happened to her, but on why the 2008 trial ended the way it did, how the grooming process actually worked, what her family knew and didn't know, and why it took this long for her voice to be heard.
And I really wanted him to have the true narrative of what really took place.
There was one person who had the clearest view of the truth the whole time.
And it was the only true way I could reclaim my name, Rona Lanfair.
This is the story of Rona Lanfair, who she was before any of this happened, how she ended up in Kelly's world, and what the events of her teenage years cost her, how it started and how it escalates. To understand what happened to Rona Lanfair, you have to understand the environment she was in. R.Kelly in the 1990s was not just a famous person. He was a force in a very specific community, Black Chicago's music scene. And that force extended well beyond concert stages and record stores. Kelly was born on January 8, 1967 in Chicago's Hyde Park neighborhood and raised in the IDAP, Wells Public Housing Projects. He came from the same city, the same kind of neighborhood, the same cultural world as the families of many of his eventual victims. That proximity mattered. He wasn't a distant celebrity. He was someone who showed up at church performances, talent shows, recording studios, someone who knew people who knew people. In his rise, Kelly had worked with Aaliyah, produced Michael Jackson's You Are Not Alone, and created gospel-infused R&B that resonated deeply across Black communities. He was praised from pulpits. His music was played at family gatherings. So, when a young girl from Chicago with musical dreams encountered someone like R.Kelly, it didn't feel threatening. It felt like fate. He came to a church show. Think about what that detail means. The setting, the implied safety, the community trust embedded in that moment. She was a teenager with a singing career already forming. She had something she cared about, and Kelly represented everything that ambition could grow into. In grooming, that aspiration is not incidental. It's the entry point. Experts who study predatory behavior describe a consistent pattern. The person doing the grooming identifies something the victim wants badly and positions themselves as the person who can provide it. That positioning creates dependency before any physical boundary is crossed. According to Lanfair's own account across interviews and her memoir, Who's Watching Shorty, what began as an introduction to Kelly through her family connections gradually shifted into something more personal and inappropriate. She has described how Kelly praised her talent, offered special attention, and made her feel seen in a way that was distinct from anyone else around her. And then the behavior escalated. What makes this pattern so effective and so difficult to identify from the inside is that it doesn't happen all at once. It happens in increments. Each step feels like a small extension of what came before it. Nothing triggers an alarm because each moment can be rationalized. By the time the behavior reaches a point that is clearly wrong, the victim is already deeply entangled emotionally, socially, and sometimes financially. At the time, Kelly's influence in the community and industry was significant enough that those around him found ways to rationalize what they were seeing. That last phrase is the one that stays with you, convincing themselves that it wasn't happening. This is not a phenomenon unique to the Kelly case. It appears repeatedly in cases involving powerful people in churches, in sports, and entertainment. The gravitational pull of someone's status, wealth, and influence creates a kind of collective denial among the people around them. And that denial has a cost. By the time the tape was made in the late 1990s, Lanfair was 14 years old. She had been in Kelly's orbit for years. At that point, the recording did not come out of nowhere. According to Lanfair, recording was a regular feature of the environment she was in. All of them. This wasn't a slip or a one-time lapse in judgment. It was systematic, and it points to something that would become central to the later federal trials. The idea that what Kelly ran was not just a series of individual abusive relationships, but something that operated more like a structured enterprise. She was 14. She didn't know she was being given alcohol. The full weight of that only became clear to her later. Much later, she didn't watch it until she was in a courtroom as an adult. By that point, the tape had been circulating publicly for years. An entire city had already seen it. The trial, the silence, and the acquittal. The 2008 trial is where the story gets complicated in ways that matter long after the verdict came in. R.Kelly was indicted on 21 counts of child pornography in June 2002. The trial itself was delayed by years of legal motions. By the time it finally began in 2007, the cultural moment had already shifted somewhat. Kelly had continued releasing music, continued performing, and in many spaces continued being celebrated. The prosecution strategy centered on the tape itself and the argument that the people shown in it were identifiable as Kelly and as a minor. But the defense pushed back hard on identification. And when the moment came for the person who could answer that question definitively, the girl in the tape, she did not testify that it was her. Lanfair has since been open about why.
What happened? Why did anybody advocate for you? Did anybody speak out for you?
Fear. Fear was not abstract here. It was specific and it had teeth.
I had to view the tape to identify myself and to be able to fully testify.
She viewed the tape in the most recent federal proceedings. By that point, she was ready. But in 2008, she wasn't. And the reasons for that are worth sitting with, because they are the same reasons that abuse involving powerful men remains hidden for so long in so many cases. Think about what Lanfair was up against at the time of the original trial. She was a young woman who had grown up with this experience embedded in her life from the age of 13. She had spent years carrying shame about something that was done to her. The tape's existence had already been publicly known and humiliating. She was 17 when she first became aware the tape was circulating. She was in her early 20s when the trial took place. This is not someone who simply chose silence out of indifference. This is someone who had been groomed since the age of 13, who grew up in a culture that told her to keep things like this private, and who was surrounded by people who either could not or would not speak up on her behalf. Her family had connections to Kelly that complicated things further. Her father had played instruments for Kelly, and her Aunt Sparkle was an R&B artist with professional ties to him. That family complexity is something Lanfair has addressed directly. The interviewer raised the allegation that families were paid to stay quiet, an allegation that circulated widely at the time. That detail reframes the financial relationship entirely. Kelly's resources were not being used to purchase silence from willing participants. They were used to fill a gap created by the chaos that surrounded the case. A chaos that Kelly himself was responsible for generating. The acquittal in 2008 did not mean justice had been done. It meant that the system had worked exactly as it was designed to work, and that a 14-year-old girl, now a young adult living in the wreckage of what had been done to her, did not yet have the protection, the support, or the distance to tell the truth in a courtroom. The jury acquitted Kelly on all 14 remaining counts on June 13, 2008. Kelly walked out of that courtroom free, and the story for a time went quiet. The reckoning, how the world finally caught up. The silence did not last. It rarely does in cases like these, though it often takes much longer than it should. In July 2017, a BuzzFeed News investigation featured parents accusing Kelly of holding young women in an abusive cult. BBC documentaries in 2018 amplified those claims. Then on January 3, 2019, Lifetime aired the 6-part documentary Surviving R.Kelly, produced by Dream Hampton. The documentary changed everything. It was not just the content. Multiple women, in their own words, describing years of isolation, control, and abuse. It was the cumulative weight of those accounts placed side by side that made it impossible to look away. The documentary featured accusers including Joranda Pace, who testified she began a relationship with Kelly at 16, as well as Kitty Jones and parents of women allegedly isolated in Kelly's orbit. It detailed grooming tactics, promising career advancement, isolating victims in hotels and studios, controlling their movements and communication, and coercing acts for Lanfair. Watching those testimonies was recognition. She had lived a version of those same experiences. She had been through what those women were describing, with their faces shown, with their full names attached. Gave her something she had been building toward for years. It gave her a frame, and it gave her a community.
What did you have to go through to get to this point, to be vocal and identify yourself?
The word still carries everything. This is not a story that has a clean ending. It is not a story where the trial verdict, even the federal conviction, closes the wound. Healing from sustained childhood abuse and public humiliation is a process that unfolds over decades, if it unfolds at all.
It took a lot of prayer. It took a lot of forgiveness of myself, the people around me, and just really confronting who I really was.
The documentary's impact extended far beyond public opinion. Cook County prosecutors charged Kelly in February 2019 with 10 counts of aggravated criminal abuse involving 4 victims between 1998 and 2010. On July 11, 2019, Kelly was arrested in Chicago on federal charges from the Eastern District of New York. Racketeering, trafficking, forced labor, child exploitation, and Mann Act violations. He was denied bail multiple times as a flight risk. The machine of accountability, which had stalled for 3 decades, was now moving. Kelly's first federal trial began August 18, 2021 in Brooklyn before U.S. District Judge M. Donnelly. Prosecutors portrayed Kelly as the leader of a criminal enterprise spanning 25 years that used his fame to lure girls and young women, some as young as 14, into abusive relationships. The racketeering framework was critical. It allowed prosecutors to connect individual incidents across years and across state lines into a single coherent pattern of criminal behavior. It also meant that each piece of testimony, each woman who stood up and said what had been done to her, was not just her own story. It was evidence of a system. 11 witnesses testified, including Joranda Pace and 2 male accusers who described being recruited and abused as teenagers. Staff members corroborated the rules victims had to follow. No eye contact with others, strict diets, and constant availability for on September 27, 2021. After less than a day of deliberation, the jury convicted Kelly on all 9 counts. On June 29, 2022, Judge Donnelly imposed 30 years in prison. Then came Chicago. Kelly faced a second federal trial in Chicago starting August 15, 2022. He and 2 former associates were charged with producing child pornography involving videos from the late 1990s, enticing minors for an obstruction of justice related to the 2008 trial. Jane, the woman in those videos, testified that Kelly groomed her starting at age 13, treated her as a go-daughter, and coerced her into recruiting other girls. On September 14, 2022, the jury convicted Kelly on 6 of 13 counts. On February 23, 2023, U.S. District Judge Harry D. Linen-Weber sentenced Kelly to 20 years, bringing the effective total to 31 years. 31 years. Not rage, not satisfaction, hope. That one word says more about the weight of what she has been carrying than anything else could. the new evidence, and what it actually means. So here we are. R.Kelly is not being released. As of March 2026, Kelly remains housed at the Federal Correctional Institution, FCI, Butner Medium, Wine in North Carolina, with a projected release date of December 21, 2045, when he will be nearly 79 years old. All major appeals, including reviews by the U.S. Courts of Appeals and the U.S. Supreme Court, have been denied or declined. In February 2026, he was placed in the Special Housing Unit isolation while being investigated for allegedly possessing the phone number of a retired prison official. That's an internal prison matter. It has nothing to do with his original convictions. His attorney, Jennifer Bonjang, has stated intentions to pursue further legal avenues. Legal experts widely view the convictions as final. So when people online have been talking about new evidence in the R. Kelly case in early 2026, the evidence they're actually pointing to is this: Rona Lanfair's public statements, her book, and her interviews. Statements that confirm in precise and personal detail what happened in the late 1990s, why the 2008 trial ended the way it did, and what the full picture actually looks like. That is the new evidence, not a court filing, not a leaked document, a survivor's voice. And it matters not because it will open new legal proceedings, but because it completes a story that was never fully told.
The R. Kelly girl. There's so much more to me than what happened to me when I was 14 years old.
The R. Kelly girl. That's what she was reduced to, not a person. A reference point in someone else's scandal. The specificity of that list. Mother, friend, co-worker is the whole point. These are the ordinary things that were taken from her when she became the punchline of a national conversation that didn't care who she actually was. That sentence, "step out of the shadows," is not metaphor. It is a literal description of what her life has been. She has been living in the shadow of a nickname assigned to her by people who never knew her based on footage of her taken when she was a child. She didn't choose that shadow. She is choosing now to walk out of it, 18 years older. Kelly was 32 when Lanfair was 14. That gap, that enormous unambiguous age gap, is something that gets lost when the story is told through the lens of controversy or allegations. It becomes clinical abstract. She makes it concrete. What is also important to understand is that the silence of the 2008 trial was not the end of Lanfair's role in holding Kelly accountable. She testified in the federal proceedings. She identified herself. She did what she was not able to do in 2008, and she is still living with consequences that many people don't think about. Death threats in 2026 from people defending a man currently serving 31 years in federal prison. This is the part of the story that tends to get skipped when people discuss the R. Kelly case as a closed chapter. The legal case may be closed. The human consequences are not. Lanfair is doing something about that. Not just by speaking publicly, but by channeling what she has been through into something that can help others. Her book, Who's Watching? Shorty, is available now. The title of this video asked whether R. Kelly has been released after new evidence leaked. He has not been released. He will not be released until he is nearly 80 years old, if ever. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit upheld the New York conviction and 30-year sentence on February 12, 2025. The U.S. Supreme Court declined to hear the appeal in June 2025. The Seventh Circuit upheld the Chicago conviction in April 2024, and the Supreme Court declined review in October 2024. The new evidence that is actually circulating is the testimony of a woman who spent 20 years living as Jane Doe. Her name is Rona Lanfair, and she has decided that her own name is worth more than the one that was given to her. That is the story. That is the evidence. The long and turbulent saga surrounding R. Kelly ultimately represents far more than the downfall of a once celebrated music icon. It reflects a broader cultural reckoning about power, celebrity, and the systems that allowed allegations to remain unresolved for so many years. For decades, Kelly's fame and influence in the music industry seemed to shield him from the full weight of public accountability. Even as accusations circulated and legal cases emerged, the combination of loyal fans, industry support, and complex legal challenges meant that many questions lingered without clear answers. The resurfacing of new testimonies and evidence has played a crucial role in reshaping the narrative. When individuals such as Rona Lanfair stepped forward publicly to share their experiences, it added new dimensions to a story that had long been clouded by anonymity and uncertainty. For years, the mysterious Jane Doe at the center of the infamous videotape remained an unanswered question in the public mind by revealing her identity and describing what she says happened. Lanfair helped reignite conversations about justice, accountability, and the long-term impact on victims whose voices were not initially heard. At the same time, the case highlights the challenges of prosecuting powerful public figures. Early investigations and the 2008 trial demonstrated how difficult it can be for prosecutors to secure convictions when key witnesses are absent or reluctant to testify. The role of media investigations, public advocacy, and survivor testimony has therefore become increasingly significant in ensuring that allegations receive renewed attention. Over the years, documentaries, investigative reporting, and public pressure have all contributed to shifting how the public and legal system respond to such accusations. Beyond the courtroom, the R. Kelly controversy has also sparked an important cultural conversation. It forced audiences, fans, and the entertainment industry to confront uncomfortable questions about separating art from the artist and about how fame can influence the treatment of serious allegations. The story became part of a larger movement demanding accountability for powerful individuals across multiple industries. In the end, the legacy of the R. Kelly case may not only be measured by legal outcomes, but also by the societal changes it helped inspire. The courage of those who chose to speak out, the renewed scrutiny of past allegations, and the ongoing discussions about justice and responsibility all illustrate how one case can transform public awareness. While the full impact of this story is still unfolding, it serves as a powerful reminder that truth often takes years to emerge and that the pursuit of justice rarely follows a simple or straightforward path. Thanks for watching. Check out other cards on the screen.